Hello, my fellow project managers. Good news and bad news. The good news is that finally the circus will come to an end. The PMBOK Guide 7th edition will be released on the 1st of August, 2021. The bad news is that this will be an appalling way of training project management because the very transparent 5 process groups and 10 knowledge areas are going away into thin air. As you see in this post from the PMI, it says, for years, a project management body of knowledge, the PMBOK Guide, has been the go-to resource for helping practitioners use best practices to deliver value on the job. However, rapid enhancements in technology and the need for organizations and practitioners to move quickly, adapt to changes in the market, have caused our profession to evolve. There's really no however clause. It's business as usual. When technology evolves, when the marketplace changes, that is what has happened for hundreds of years. That is what brought the likes of Henry L. Gantt onto the scene with a Gantt chart. That's what brought the likes of Frederick L. Taylor, whose work progressed into the WBS, as made popular by NASA and the DoD in the late 50s. Nothing has changed. It's business as usual. So there's really no however clause. But this publication from the PMI goes further to say, the PMBOK Guide 7th edition, which includes a revised the standard for project management, which by the way is an appalling right, in my opinion, will support this need for flexibility by adopting a principle-based structure for the standard and performance domains of the guide. Watch this, in place of process groups and knowledge areas. How nebulous will project management be now that they've taken away the foundational process groups, the plan, do, check, act, evolvement, which was great, and the knowledge areas, which is common sense, they've taken those away. And what have they replaced it with? They've replaced it with these 8 performance domains. Let's take a look at these 8 performance domains, which in my mind have no rhyme or reason. Now take a look. How do you explain project management to a layman? By talking about stakeholder, team, development, planning, project work, delivery, measurement, uncertainty. Those of you who've been through the mantra in the current edition, you know the value of the 5 process groups and how transparent it is to look at the progression from initiating to planning all the way to closing, and how sensible it makes to classify areas of project management, how sensible it is to classify scope, schedule, cost. I mean, everyone can relate to that. How do you relate to these nebulous things on the screen? Uncertainty is really risk. Why not just call it what it is? Why not just leave the 10 knowledge areas and the 5 process groups intact? But no, they had to make these totally, in my mind, unneeded changes. Well, here's the news. A lot of project managers who have worked for companies for the past 50 plus years since PMI has been in existence will not be using this because it's meaningless to a lot of us in predictive firms. At best, 90% predictive, 10% agile. Let's even say 60% predictive, 40% agile. How do you address the major concerns that stakeholders have? Schedule, cost, scope. They are nowhere on this horizon. Even in the world of agile, we address schedule, cost, and scope. We know that there's flexibility in scope, but we fix the cost and schedule, even in the world of agile. And that is why I believe this is a totally misguided and self-inflicting injury that they are putting on themselves by doing this. But the good news is many of us will not support this. We won't push it because we know that this makes no sense to the organizations we work in and for, okay? So while they are raving fans for the 7th edition, there are also people who are absolutely disgusted and irritated by it, and they will not support it, okay? So if you work for an organization where you need solid practices and processes to work your projects, because nothing has changed, don't listen to the alarmists saying, oh, things have changed so much that everyone is going down this alley and we need to be so agnostic that we lose our identity. No, many organizations are very predictive. Schedule, cost, and scope are at the helm of everything they do. And it will always be that way for many types of industries. Now, is it sensible to think agile? Absolutely, you should. But you cannot throw out the baby with the bathwater. First of all, not listening to your stakeholders is a huge mistake they made in this 7th edition. And secondly, not staying true to the origins of the process groups and the knowledge areas is going to be a big problem for this edition. I doubt that this edition will go very far. It will not be, because there's nothing to implement, right? It's all over the place, all over the place. Now, let's go to this methods, models, and artifacts. In my mind, this is just another fancy name for ITTOs. It's another name for inputs, tools, techniques, and outputs. The models and the methods are very tool and technique specific. The artifacts are very input and output oriented. So why not just keep the names? Why keep making all of these unnecessary, unwieldy changes? Now I see that they are still talking about process groups under models, which makes no sense. It's more overarching than just models. It's based on the PDCA. I don't even see the PDCA cycle. Let's hope they've got that one in there. I see they've thrown ADCAR into the mix, right? For change management. They probably didn't throw in their FEPIMS method for changes, which is great. So I see this as being just all over the place. It's all over the place. Here's the methods. These are tools and techniques again. And here we go with the artifacts, inputs and outputs. So in my mind, these are just rather bogus, totally needless. I think the 7th edition is probably the most useless edition that has been written since the PMBOK guide started, which is a bit of a pity. But for those of you project managers, vote with your use, vote with your comments, and send a message that churning out a useless edition just for the sake of doing so will not go down well with the community, all right? And I speak as a member of the community. I think moving away from the solid 5 process groups, 10 knowledge areas, whether you're talking about agile or you're talking about predictive, those stand. They stand across the board. Every project, whether agile or predictive, needs to be initiated. It's authorized, it's planned, it's executed, it's monitored and controlled daily. The Scrum method, the Scrum framework rather, you have the daily Scrum. What do you think that is? That is a check. That's an inspection. What about the sprint review? What do you think that is? What about the retrospective? What do you think that is? So however you want to slice and dice it, I think there's a big mistake. I think what the PMI should have done is taken the 6th edition and stripped it of the just so many tools and techniques. I agree. There's so many that I agree on. They should have stripped them down. But what they should have done, where they missed the boat, is the blending in of the concepts from the Agile Practice Guide and making a wholesome 7th edition that could have still had the same level of eminence they're looking for, even more, I would say, than what they're trying to do, because they don't want to become obsolete. Yes, I understand, but you don't remain relevant by throwing garbage into the market. And honestly, if I open up the Agile Manifesto and I look at the values and the principles, and I open up the 6th edition, I'm going to get a lot more value. And I dare say, I open up the Scrum Guide, I'm going to get a ton more value than I would get from this 7th edition, not to mention the Agile Practice Guide. So this is my opinion. Project managers everywhere, use your common sense. Take a look at whatever is presented. It complicates things more. It mars more than helps. And for that reason, this will be, in my mind, the most useless edition to ever be published. Mark my words, take a look at it. The Agile community, they're not going to touch you with a 10-foot pole because they already have things in place that work. The predictive community already knows the best of the world of predictive. It's already happened in the 6th, 5th, 4th, 3rd editions, right? 2nd and 1st. So all people are going to do is tap into the past. But this thing that they've created, I can assure you, very little use. You will find very little use of this edition. Okay? Take a look at this page. Let me know what you think. All the best. Bye for now.